This is Disciple Up, number 189, Celebrity Pastors. This is Disciple Up, the disciple empowering podcast where psychology, science, the real world, sin, self, and culture meet head on, and Scripture rules. If you're a follower of Christ looking to grow or looking for some biblical answers, then get ready, because it's time to Disciple Up. Hey everybody, welcome to Disciple Up, the best podcast you've never heard. My name's Louie. I'm your host for the show today. Glad you're with us. We're going to kind of take a little departure from the kind of stuff we've been doing lately and take a look at this. This is from an article which I found today on ChristianityToday.com, and brings up some interesting issues that I think we need to think about. And I actually think this time of year is a good time of year to think about it, because I think the holidays feed into this, and the new year might tend to feed into this as well. Now, I've titled this Celebrity Pastors. If you saw the thumbnail image, you saw that. But really, and we're going to talk mostly, I think, about people in the ministry full-time or even part-time that are pastors or whatever you want to call them. But really, this really applies to all Christians. This is a problem that needs to be recognized and understood on both ends of the stick, both on the end of the man or the woman who is the celebrity, and on the other end, all of the people who hold them up as celebrities. Because there's problems on both ends of that stick, let me tell you. So that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today, and I have not had time, to prepare this very well, so we're just going to wing it, which sometimes is great and sometimes really sucks. You can let me know which one of those you think this is by simply contacting me when you finish listening. You can email me, Louie, Louie, at discipleup.org, or you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/discipleup, and leave a comment there. Either one will do. So this is an article that I picked up today on ChristianityToday.com. It's under their leadership section. It says, "The celebrity pastor problem is every church's struggle. How our ministry policies and practices can push back against entitlement," by Rich Villodas, Villodas. So I think that's more or less sort of right. Of course, immediately I was struck by the phrase "every church's struggle," which I agree with. But you don't think of small churches, of course, when you think of celebrity pastors, do you? Now, on the cover, on the thumbnail of this episode, you saw the picture, an old picture of Billy Graham preaching to a crowd. Now, I looked at all kinds of other pictures I could have put there. I looked at several of the Pope, because the Pope is a celebrity. He is a worldwide celebrity. Everywhere he goes, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people want to see him. He's a celebrity. And then I looked at a bunch of pictures of people that maybe haven't handled celebrity so well. You know who they are, at least some of whom I'm talking about. Then I decided, why not show a picture of someone who actually was a celebrity, Billy Graham, the biggest celebrity, really, in the 20th century, the biggest Christian celebrity in the 20th century, let me put it that way. And a man who handled it very well, seems to me. Let's start off here before we get to the article, and the link, by the way, to the article can be found in the show notes at discipleup.org. Here's how Merriam-Webster defines celebrity. Number one, the state of being celebrated. Fame. And then, of course, they always have the little sentences where they use the word to help you understand it. The actress lived a life of celebrity. Okay? I don't actually think many people would say it that way, but all right. Number two, under celebrity, a famous or celebrated person. Many celebrities attended the awards ceremony. Yes, celebrities are big at awards ceremonies. So like I said, if that's your definition, then the Pope's a celebrity. Billy Graham was the biggest Christian celebrity of the 20th century. There's all kinds of pastors and authors. C.S. Lewis would be a celebrity if he was and during his lifetime, and still is held up to that status today. Many other great Christian leaders and pastors of the past, Dwight L. Moody, for example, and others you could call celebrities. So a celebrity doesn't or isn't necessarily a person that's looking to be a celebrity. Sometimes you're made a celebrity by the people around you. If they celebrate you and lift you up, and if enough of them do that, then you become a celebrity. Now, sometimes you're just a celebrity on a local level. For example, I know many small church pastors who are definitely celebrities in their churches. Now, in a sense, I guess you could say all of us, or almost all of us, are, because we have a few, quote, and I hate to use this term, but I'm going to use it, fans, quote unquote, in our churches, a few people that look to us and celebrate us in that way. But there are some churches small churches, where they just think, their pastor, he's the man, he's the guy, he has the last word on everything, and woe be it unto you, should you disagree with him. Okay, that's a celebrity. Martin Luther would be a celebrity. John Wesley, John Knox. You could go on and on and on. And in fact, if you go all the way back to it, Jesus was, during his lifetime, a celebrity because he drew crowds. Paul was a celebrity. Moses was a celebrity. So using that definition, you can see that celebrity has been around a long time. We just haven't had as many of them, and I don't think we've celebrated them to the extent we do nowadays. And part of that, of course, is we have the technology now to do this all around the world. So it's not just a local thing for a big celebrity anymore. So if you're a megachurch pastor, you are definitely a celebrity. Every megachurch pastor is a celebrity, at least to most of the people in his own church. And then you have people like Joel Osteen and others who are known all over the world, not even primarily actually for being a pastor. He's primarily known for being an author / inspirational speaker. And so there you have it. So let's take a look at this article and see what we can find. Because I think it might be interesting and helpful to us. All right, here we go. Got to pull it up. There we go. When I became a pastor at New Life Fellowship, my predecessor, Pete Scazzaro, Scazzero, told me, "Congratulations, you can't park in the church parking lot anymore." There's a great welcome to the church. This shocked me since I came from a church where I saw all kinds of perks and special treatment for senior leaders. I wondered, shouldn't pastors have prime parking spots? Close quote. Now let me depart from the article for just a second here. We have a pastor in the small little town where I live and preach at Christ Church on the River, soon to be known as River Church. That rebranding coming soon. And I will probably do a episode on that, just because people either love or hate this kind of stuff. So I'll be explaining to you why we're doing it. But he had this thing. He wanted to have a clergy parking spot at the hospital. This was like a thing for him. He talked about it a lot. He's involved on the hospital board and stuff like that. And he finally got it at some point last year. I couldn't tell you where it is because, of course, I don't go to the hospital much anymore because they won't let me in. Thank you, COVID-19. But when I have gone, a few times that I've gone this year and before, I didn't look for a parking spot that said pastor or clergy or chaplain or whatever it says. I just parked and walked in, How hard can that be? So actually, I don't think pastors should have special parking spots because that's part of the celebrity culture. That's part of playing into people's ego, and that's not good. So, no, I actually don't think they should do that. Back to the article. Our church in Queens has a small lot, massive by New York City standards. But the point was taken. Pastors aren't entitled to special treatment. They lead by serving. The parking lot lesson from Pete became one of my most important moments of character formation. Okay, take a break from the article for a second. Isn't it interesting how something that small and trivial really can make such a huge impact on people? But that's the kind of stuff that changes people's lives all the time, right? It's amazing how you put together like a whole sermon or a whole series of sermons and whatever, and someone will come to you and mention something that you said that was kind of just an aside, something you just tossed out and moved on. And they don't remember anything else of all your brilliantly put together points and exegesis and wisdom and skill and communicative insight. Nope, they don't remember any of that. They remember that little thing that you thought of in the moment, spoke, and threw it aside. That changed their life. So one of the great things about the ministry that should humble you. Now, unfortunately, that kind of stuff oftentimes does not humble people, because then they begin to think they're infallible or that God inspires everything they say, no matter how stupid it may be, and he does not. But anyway, it just shows you how God can use little tiny, fairly trivial and insignificant things to big effect in your life if you let him. Back to the article. Certainly this culture of no parking can be taken to another extreme where pastors are not sufficiently cared for, encouraged, and supported, but it's important to push back against the temptations of entitlement that can come with church leadership. Now, I've been in church leadership for a long time, my friends. Yeah, I am 67 now. I'll be 68 in just about a month. What am I saying? What is it with me and doing math on this podcast? I can't seem to do it once I turn my mic on. It's actually less than a month. It's actually 21 days from now. I'll be 68. And that's just, so depressing. And I've been around a long time. And I'm telling you, I think that this is very important. Yes, pastors need to be paid for, well paid for, cared for, whatever the church can do for them. But they need to also always be pushing back against the temptations that feed that ego and get you to thinking that you are so special and wonderful and the church can't live without you and blah, blah, blah. Because, well, in the first place, none of that's true. And in the second place, that's going to lead you down a road you don't want to go down. Back to the article. To be honest, walking to the church building after circling and looking for parking is not fun. It gets pretty tiring, especially when it rains or snows. But I recognize how this policy reflects a broader church culture where pastors aren't celebrities deserving special treatment. As a pastor, I regularly think about my own entitled tendencies and the issue of entitlement in ministry. The topic came up recently with the news of Carl Lintz's departure from Hillsong, New York City. I read a little bit about this, don't really know much about it. Don't really want to know any more about it than I know, quite frankly, because it's just another one of those sad stories of moral failure. Back to the article. While his story also involves the painful extramarital relationships and drama therein, Lintz's rise and fall came in a context of hip megachurch celebrity. A recent New York Times investigation. Now, there's a link in the article to that investigation. I did not check that out. If you want to, knock yourself out. And I'm skeptical when the New York Times criticizes churches because it's the New York Times, not exactly a friendly place for evangelical, fundamental, Bible-believing, let's just put it that way, maybe, Christianity. They're clearly opposed to most of what we teach, preach, and believe. So I'm taking this with a big grain of salt. But at the same time, I don't think it's not possible. I'm just wondering if maybe they haven't exaggerated. The New York Times described the church culture at Hillsong, NYC, that, quote, seemed to go out of its way to cultivate a hierarchy of coolness, unquote, where Lentz, quote, both loomed large and was rarely present, unquote. His case is just one example, prompting all of us in the church to look more closely at how entitlement has become normalized in our churches and what we can do to address it. All right. That whole his presence loomed large, but he was rarely present things, very interesting. I have heard of this happening in other large churches as well, and I do think that could be a big problem. Keeping honor from becoming veneration. Scripture describes the special responsibilities pastors take on and says that those who lead the church are, quote, worthy of double honor, unquote. 1 Timothy 5:17. In some churches, though, pastoral entitlements masquerade as honor. Certainly an ethos of honor, a desire for churches to bless their pastors and care well for them, has the potential to correct unhealthy cultures that reduce pastors to human doings. That's a weird sentence. We have seen the ministry burnout and damage consequences that can result when pastors are expected to be everything for the community without adequate gifts of rest, support, and recreation. Okay, let me just stop and say the first two churches I served and sort of the fourth church I served were guilty of that, especially the first two. Yeah, definitely they were. They just constantly piled stuff on you, gave you no help, and expected, you to do all that with very little, if no money. So, which, can be a problem. A healthy culture of honor recognizes the emotional and spiritual weight pastors carry in shepherding a flock and seeks to create sustainable rhythms and policies and practical care for long-term flourishing. Okay, now see, that might be a little overwritten, but as a writer, but I like the basic idea. A healthy culture of honor, which is good. See, what we need is culture of honor in the church. We honor one another. We don't need a culture of celebrity. Nobody needs a culture of celebrity. We all have one. We all live in one. If you live in the United States or Europe or the UK or a lot of other places. So in our churches, we need to be trying to cultivate a culture where we honor people and minister to them without making them, celebrities and special and above us all. This culture of honor is well intended. I appreciate when a volunteer sets aside a plate of food for me at a church event because I'm too busy connecting with people in the room. My wife and I have been, this is him writing, not me speaking, my wife and I have been profoundly grateful for kind visits from congregants dropping off a meal every once in a while. In our congregation, which is filled with many immigrants, we have received generous gifts of hospitality that have humbled us. But the biblical directive to honor our pastors can be carried out in a way that looks more like sanctified entitlement. There's a line that's crossed where honor turns into veneration. Shepherds are treated as celebrities, and pastoral vocation degenerates into a sideshow. Much of this emerges from pastors who take themselves too seriously, narcissistically centering themselves in the church family system. But the more insidious issue lies within the larger systematic reality that reinforces this culture. Okay, so before we get to that, let's talk about the ego, which is what he's talking about here when he says pastors who take themselves too seriously, narcissistically centering themselves in the church family system. I pastored a church before I came back here to CCR. I was gone for about 5 years, where the guy that I replaced had put himself in the middle of everything. Everything went through him. Everything flowed through him. Nothing was done without him. And that's not my style of leadership, and I don't think it should be any intelligent person's style of leadership, because you're a bottleneck, because one person can only handle so much. I don't care how amazingly gifted you are. At some point, you're going to reach maximum output, and then everything's going to back up waiting for you to get around to it. So I didn't do it that way, and that didn't go over too well. They didn't. See, the people didn't like it. They said they wanted change, but they really didn't, because they still wanted somebody that would be right there and make all these decisions and do all these things and pretty much just tell them what to do, not encourage them to seek the Lord and figure it out for themselves, with help, of course, from the staff and the leadership. And that's a problem, because that makes you a celebrity. Back to the article. In their important book, A Church Called Tove, which I've never heard of until right now, Scott McKnight and Laura Behringer highlight this dynamic. They write, "Of course, celebrities don't form on their own. Behind every celebrity pastor is an adoring congregation that both loves and supports the celebrity atmosphere. The development of a celebrity culture also doesn't happen overnight. It begins when a pastor has a driving ambition for fame, but it can't take root unless the congregation supports that ambition. Unfortunately, many people want their pastor to be a spiritual hero or a celebrity at some level. They not only want it, but they often expect it and find themselves believing it about their pastor." Now, I would disagree with something they say here when they say development of celebrity culture doesn't happen overnight. It begins with when a pastor has a driving ambition for fame, but it can't take root unless the congregation supports that ambition. Well, I have seen people put people who really didn't want to be on the pedestal on it. And here's the thing. If people start putting you up on a pedestal, even though you don't like it and don't want it, if you don't get off of that thing in a hurry, you're going to find out that the temptation to cave into all the things they're saying about you might just be too much, and your ego is going to love it. And you're going to start wanting to stay there more and more, and you'll get used to it, and it'll become, quote, normal, unquote. And I've seen that happen, because people do want to put other people on pedestals. The human heart loves to worship idols. And when none are available, we will make one. That's what Israel did when Moses was up on Mount Sinai. They got a bunch of their jewelry together, threw it in the fire there, worked it over, hammered out themselves a calf, and they worshipped it. Because they wanted something tangible to look up to and feel good about. Because, see, if your pastor is Mr. Wonderful, Mr. I can't make any mistakes, Mr. I know the Bible better than everybody, whatever, that reflects back on you because you're part of his group. So now you're special because he's special and you're with him. And that's why people want to make other people celebrities, so they can look up to them and they can have a focus for their adoration. And at the same time, they can take a little bit of that for themselves because I'm with you. And I'll tell you what, when they say they not only want their pastor to be spiritual hero, they not only want it, but they expect it. I'll tell you what, sometimes they demand it. And I've seen that. And if you can't live up to it, they're going to run you over and throw you out. Find somebody that will play the game, regardless of whether he's really all that or not. And most likely he or she. Paula White's another example of a celebrity female pastor. Beth Moore's not a pastor, but she is a celebrity Christian teacher. So there's plenty of women out there, too. It's not just a man thing. Okay, back to the article. Celebrity church culture is not monopolized by megachurches and big names. I don't know if I agree with that. Well, monopolized. Yeah, there's plenty, like I said, there's plenty of celebrity pastors in smaller churches, but the ones you hear about all the time are the megas, so whatever. He says, I've seen leaders at small and medium-sized churches act like they're part of the royal family. And there's also culture involved in this. I didn't know until a year or two ago that in at least some, perhaps many, black churches, the pastor's wife is called the First Lady. She's not called the pastor's wife or Joan or whatever her name is. She's called the First Lady. Again, that's probably justified by honor, but I can't help but think that would have a vigorous appeal to your ego, since, of course, the only other woman I know that's called the First Lady is the wife of the president. So that smacks to me of celebrity culture. Just another example of it. In light of these, back to the article, in light of these troubling realities, how do pastors and church communities resist this spirit of entitlement? I'd like to offer 2 suggestions to consider. At minimum, resisting entitlement requires churches to ensure their pastors are accessible and accountable. Accessible and accountable. Now, this is interesting because I wish I could actually teach this more overseas. I haven't had a chance to, but a couple of times I've got to teach on preaching and on just being a pastor in general. And these are 2 of the things which I hammer away at with young people going into the ministry, or at least, seriously considering. Some of them are actually in the ministry. They just have little to no education, And so I've been blessed and honored to teach them. And that's 2 of the things I teach is you've got to be accessible and you've got to be accountable. Because if you're not, you're in trouble. In big trouble. And if you'll notice, these are 2 things that celebrities are not. Celebrities are not accessible. Another form of celebrity that's taking place in our culture today, primarily, though not exclusively among men, is called simping. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but these are usually beautiful women or very attractive women or whatever you want to call them. And they develop a following. A lot of them will start on Instagram, build up a following of, men looking at their pictures and, their whatever they're wearing, as little as they can for Instagram. But then they'll set up an OnlyFans page, or there's some other websites you can do that, and you pay, and then you pay money, of course, to see them wearing less or perhaps wearing nothing, whatever. And it's called simping because a lot of these men really want and think that they're going to develop a relationship with these women somehow if they could just get them to notice them. I read something online 6 weeks ago, maybe, of a guy who went and met some porn star and gave her his all his savings was over $10,000 just to meet her. She didn't even speak to him, but he got to meet her. Celebrity. She's not a celebrity to me, probably not a celebrity to you, but she's a celebrity to her little crowd, and that's how she treats them. Not accessible, not accountable. Okay, back to the article. Making pastors stay present. Few things breed cultures of entitlement like special rooms and hallways that intentionally keep a pastor away from people. Visiting churches all over, I've witnessed plenty of these secret getaways that normalized a culture of distance. Parentheses, don't get me wrong, there are times when I'm just exhausted and need to leave the church building by the back entrance, but this is the exception, close parentheses. Yeah, you need to come, Pastor, here, buddy. We don't have a back entrance. You can't get out the back of my of the main building. The fellowship hall does have a back entrance, not the main building where the offices are. You go out the front, or you go out the side, but you can't go out the back. Well, you can go out one side. You can't go out the other side or the back. Okay. Anyway, he does have a really good point here, though. A pastor, back to the article, who is not regularly accessible to the people he or she leads is not a pastor. Let me just read that sentence again. A pastor who is not regularly accessible to the people he or she leads is not a pastor. Boom. Drop the mic. There you go. That is so true. That is absolutely true. They might be a preacher or communicator, but certainly not a pastor. Remember, the word pastor means shepherd. If you don't know where your sheep are, if you never have touch with them, if you never connect with them, how can you shepherd them? You can't. In our large congregation of over 1,500 people, again, this is him talking, not me. It's not the size of the church I pastor. Every pastor must be available after services to be with the congregants, even if just for 15 or 20 minutes. This expectation was established long before I arrived, No matter how large a church becomes, this gesture of presence goes a long way. So see, it actually is possible to do this even in a megachurch. Moreover, a pastoral culture that resists entitlement makes space for those who don't carry congregational influence. I've had to wrestle with this often. Because I'm the lead pastor of our congregation, many people want to meet with me. When my assistant sets up appointments, I'm often tempted to only say yes to those who carry significant influence in our community. I've had to, on more than one occasion, resist the pull toward only meeting with people I know have power and resources. Oh, yeah, because if you're truly shepherding people, you're going to shepherd them, all of them, not just the ones that you can use to accomplish whatever thing it is that you want to do next. That's what politicians do. That's not what pastors do. Back to the article. Being asked the hard questions. I don't really like the word accountability, he says, especially how it's typically used in Christian contexts. Accountability often comes across as a stale, awkward, forced confessions to a group of people you don't even know well. At least that has been my experience in the past. But resisting entitlement requires compassion and honesty. Every pastor needs an environment where difficult questions can be asked regularly. I would be lying if I told you I do this joyfully. I don't like being told what to do. I want to call the shots. I want to inform people, not ask for permission. Yet this has been one of the most important safeguards for my leadership and pastoral life. I'm grateful to report to an elder board that asks hard questions monthly. I'm grateful that they are not impressed with me. In the past couple of years, I've had to grow significantly in my relationship to the board. To this day, submitting to healthy authority is a struggle for me. My false self is exposed. My perfectionism is clearly seen. Yet deep down inside, I know God is protecting me. To get to a place where pastors and boards can relate to one another in ways that hold meaning, that hold together the tension of grace and truth, requires a high level of self-awareness, humility, differentiation, and the courage to ask hard questions. One simple way to measure humility as a leader is to tell yourself, quote, honestly identify the tasks and people you think are beneath you, unquote. I've had to ask this of myself more than I care to admit. Pastoral ministry must be marked by humility. Our churches can help by creating cultures that prioritize accessibility and accountability and resist entitlement. Those changes don't happen overnight. The policies we make today, though, may go on to change the expectations, then instincts, and then hearts of our leaders in the future, and give them more time to think and pray about as they walk from their cars in the snow. Rich Velotis is the lead pastor of New Life Fellowship and author of The Deeply Formed Life. Now, this is one place where I think being a pastor of a small church comes in really handy. When he says here, tell yourself, honestly identify the tasks and people you think are beneath you. If you're in a big church like he's in, you probably almost never have to take the trash out. I do that every week. I also go out and bring it back in. You probably never have to clean the church because the guy that's supposed to clean the church didn't clean the church. You probably don't have to fix communion because the people that were supposed to do communion forgot or are sick or couldn't make it for various and sundry reasons. And in fact, this year, a couple times I signed up and did a month of communion. So in a small church, it's much easier to keep your hands on these things. Now, it's, well, you're the pastor. You shouldn't be doing those kinds of things. Well, in a perfect world, you'd be right. But, every once in a while, it doesn't hurt. And if you won't get let's just say it this way. If you won't, quote, get your hands dirty, unquote, that way, you got a problem, brother or sister. You are on the road to egotism and celebrityism, and it's not a road you want to go down, because it will not end well. I guarantee you it will not end well. Remember, I don't remember when this was now, a few episodes ago, maybe a month ago, where we talked about, I can't think of the guy's name. He just passed away, and, he was another celebrity, and he wasn't very accountable. He was this great guy, and now, of course, it's come out that he was sexually immoral in different spas that he owned and was asking women to do sexual favors for him and all that. He wasn't accessible, and he wasn't accountable. And that's critical. Accessibility, in a sense, is accountability. If people can come see you all the time, or know when they can come see you, or call you, or email you, or whatever, that helps keep you accountable. That's why at CCR we have an open door policy. Both Amy and I had it when she came, she adopted it. And that is, if I'm here, if I'm in the office, if I'm there, I'm actually here now. Here's home. It's where I'm talking to you right now. Sorry. And you stop, and if nobody else is talking to me and you have something you need to talk about, I will stop whatever I'm doing and talk to you, unless I'm in the middle of something I can't stop. But you know what I mean. Yeah, that's the way it is. If somebody else is there, then you have to wait till I'm done. But it's first come, first serve, and people know our office hours. I'm usually there Monday through Thursday, 9 to 3, Fridays, 9 to noon. So if you need me, you can find me. That's part of being accountable. That's part of being accessible. The two things play together very well, and it's important so people know that I'm there. I'm not some big movie star that just strolls in to do the sermon on Sunday or something. No, I'm their servant, and I'm there serving them at regular times. Now, sure, things come up and I have to leave, and that's just fine. But I'm doing it to be a servant, to be an example of Christ to them, and to be in a place where they can get a hold of me when they need me. And, of course, they all know they can call me any old time they want, so that's not a problem either. So take a look at first yourself, and then take a look at the whatever church you're a part of, if you're a part of one, and if you're not part of one, go get into one. But when you're looking at different churches to join, take a look at how they treat their pastors, their staff, and especially the senior pastor. Because if you're going to have a celebrity, usually it will be him. Although occasionally, and especially in the world we live in today, sometimes the youth pastor or the music minister can sort of also really have a lot of shine that way, But we need to look at that very carefully and do what we can do to make sure we don't fall into it on either end. We're not the ones pushing the celebrity by idolizing him or her, and we're also not on the other end of that if we're involved in a ministry where we let the people in our ministry suddenly put us up on a little pedestal, so we're a little celebrity compared to the big celebrity, the senior pastor, and a lot of churches are like that. They got plenty of celebrities. Nope. You got to tear those idols down, because that's what they are, and you got to be humble before God and accessible and accountable to people and God. And that's that. So that will wrap up our look at celebrity pastors and really celebrity Christians for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you have any, you can, like I said at the beginning, email me, Louie, Louie, at discipleup.org. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/discipleup. Leave a comment there. And I would also love to hear what you'd like to hear next. Got any questions? Got any things in the Bible you're not sure about? Any issues that are troubling you? Any stuff you'd like talked about? Stuff I've said you agree with? Stuff I've said you don't agree with? Let me know it all. Love to hear from you. And thank you so much for listening. If you're still listening at this point, God bless you. You're the hardcore, and I appreciate you so much. So I just want you to know that, and remember that I'm only here because you're listening, so I hope you'll keep listening, and I hope you'll keep sharing this with your friends so we can boost the audience. So until next time, everybody, thank you so much again for being out there. God bless each and every one of you, and remember that every time is a good time to disciple up. So long.
Disciple Up, the Empowering Disciples podcast, is written, produced, directed, in as much as there's any direction of this thing at all, edited every once in a while, and paid for by Louie. It's his personal ministry, and is not connected to Christ Church on the River. CCR does not sponsor, pay for, or necessarily approve the content found therein. The theme music for Disciple Up is Hot Wheels by Varensky. Yes, Louie actually paid for the rights to this very cool piece of music, so don't worry, and please call off the lawyers, as he's busy enough without having to deal with all that. All opinions expressed during Disciple Up are Louie's, and Louie's alone. They do not necessarily represent those of our sponsor, the Lord Jesus Christ. However, where the opinions, thoughts, impressions, and feelings shared are in line with God's Word, and faithfully represent what our Lord says in His holy word, the Bible, then they are representative of our Lord Jesus Christ. If you're wondering how the heck you're supposed to know this, remember, God tells you to test all things. Hold on to the truth. It's up to you to do the due diligence that God commands, so do it. Don't whine about it, and don't complain about how hard it is. Don't blame me for it. Disciple Up, and do what you know you're supposed to do. If you'd like to know more about Louie or Disciple Up, please go to discipleup.org and check out everything you find there. Or not, it's completely up to you. Disciple Up, the Empowering Disciples podcast will, God willing, publish an episode every week covering different areas of concern to disciples of Jesus. If that's important to you, then please subscribe on iTunes, Google, Stitcher, or another one of the many podcast aggregators available to you. If it's not, then don't. If you'd like to get in touch, please email Louie at louie@discipleup.org. God bless you.